Note that we are all present other than Bill Hayden. And I'll ask for an approval of the minutes of May 18th. Is there a motion?
All
right. Motion. Brian makes motion. Is there a second for second? Tom makes a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Okay. Paul, are you all set with?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is he hooked up to that?
I just got to hit the on button there.
Okay. Seeing that they're going to get that. This is my business partner, Rick Wilson. He is the CEO of Kaivu. I will turn it over to him. When he's done, I'll come back. All right, guys. See you in a bit.
Well, hi.
Hi there.
So I'm the better part of Kaivu.
I'm afraid he is.
You're out of this. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I have either a PowerPoint presentation that I can show you a little bit of a company and why the problem that we try to solve for folks, or I can do a live presentation, or we can just talk. So what would you guys like?
I think initially it would be a good just to provide some framework for everybody, what the product is overall, and just
Sure.
give somebody just a basis for that discussion.
Okay. So our product has evolved from a starting point where we were trying to make people more efficient in their business. I come from a background about 25 years worth of computer and business consulting. And the thing that really used to piss me off was that I'd spend all this time getting something up and running, and then it wouldn't get adopted, or it wouldn't have the impact that we had hoped that it would have, usually because people didn't know existed, or it wasn't answering the question that they really had. And so we started out when work from home started happening, using the new technology called artificial intelligence to figure out ways to solve people's questions that they had when they were in a work from home environment. They didn't know who to ask. And so what I've discovered is a lot of companies have things like employee handbooks and portals and stuff like that. But finding the information that you need becomes like a secondary job, right? You want to know what the time off is, and you got to dig and you got to read for 3 hours, and nobody's got time for it. You want to know how to change your 401k, and then they've outsourced the 401k to a third party, and nobody knows who to call, and then you call them and you leave them out. You know, we've all been there. It's a really frustrating thing. So we built Kaivu as a way for people to have one spot to go internally in an organization to ask a question and get an answer. When we were rolling it out to our test clients, which were really big enterprises, what we discovered is that there was kind of this bigger problem. And that bigger problem was that as AI was being adopted in, there wasn't control over it. And the problem with using artificial intelligence is that it has this thing, the power of it is it's generative. And what that means is it doesn't really know the answer it's going to give you until it generates it. And that's a great thing because you don't have to put in every single question that you ever want answered. But it's a bad thing in that every time you ask a question, it's generating what is effectively a new response. And so there are times when you want an answer to just be the answer. But how do you get that into a system and in a way that gives you consistency? And is that even a problem? And so to illustrate kind of what the problem is that we see it as a visual representation, is I took my younger LinkedIn photo and I told generative AI, and I said, this was ChatGPT, I think 351. It does the exact same thing with 4.0. It does the exact same thing across all of them. I said, copy this. Don't change a thing, right? And I fed that in 50 times. right?
Wow.
So you can see what happens, right? It's what we call answer drift. Every single answer is not really that different than the answer that was before, but the sum total of it has me looking like a North Korean dictator, right? So now imagine you're an employee and you ask a question and you get an answer, and somebody comes along 5 days later and asks the same question and gets a slightly different answer. And 3 days later or 5 weeks later, now the answer that the 15th or the 50th person gets can be as dramatically different as this. So there are times when you want generative AI, and there are times when you really want to know that the answer is going to be the answer. And you want, as an organization, to be able to control and say, if somebody asks this question, always give them this answer. And also, if somebody is allowed to go to generative AI, I want to know when they've gone, I want to know what they asked, and I want to know what they responded with. And then I also want, so that the next time somebody asks that question, I don't go and burn tokens going out and generating the next response and maybe getting a different answer. What I do is I put a pin in it and I say, this was a generative answer. It hasn't been reviewed, but at least now we have consistency in what it is that we're responding to people. And then we built this mechanism in that allows individuals to be identified as subject matter experts, and they can review those questions that were generated and say, oh yeah, no, this isn't quite right, but here it is, this is the right one. And now you're building up what we call vetted and verified information, institutional knowledge, so that you know, and everybody in the organization knows, Jim over here has said that this is the right answer. Or it used to be the right answer in 2026, and then in 2027, we changed it, Molly changed it to this, right? And so you have this whole hierarchy, and it goes through this whole role-based access control. As cute as this is, to give you an idea of some of the consequences of generative AI, which I don't think I need to, but Air Canada was caught lying. Their chatbot said that you could go in and get a refund. And they went to court and they said, it wasn't us, it was a chatbot. And the court said, oh, no. The chatbot is you, right? Chevy dealership, their chatbot sold the Chevy Tahoe for $1, right? And they were forced to honor it. And you go a little scarier, place down in New Zealand was giving away, they had their chatbot making recipes, and somebody gave them a recipe for making chlorine gas, right? So as cute as it is, there are real world consequences about it. Now, the analogy that we use right now is that, everybody sees AI as a superhero, but it's a superhero without any boss or any consequences, right? It doesn't report to anybody. And really, you've got technology is kind of being said, AI reports to you. Well, technology's job isn't to know what the answer should be. Technology's job is kind of just make it work. And blaming technology for the wrong answer is like blaming the bus driver for that the guy that got off the bus did his job wrong, right? Because really, it doesn't belong under technology. It belongs in the areas that it's answering questions for. So if it's answering questions about specific things, we want the finance people to be answering the finance questions and making those right. We want the operations people doing it that way. So our solution is different in a couple different ways. One is that we don't, by default, leave AI outside of your organization. Most people are going out to a chat GPT or something else. You guys use Microsoft Azure and Teams, right? We build up, instead of sending that data out there so that these third parties can build up all this knowledge about you, what we do is we get in the middle of this. And we make sure that every query to AI, if you choose to, goes through us. And what we do is we build up an AI inside of your environment. And this is nothing special. You can choose any model you want. We're just using Azure AI if you're familiar with that technology. And it's running inside of your own instance. And so then it's being charged not by the token and questions you use, it's by the process running, right? And then instead of that data being accumulated about you and the questions you're asking, it's now your data. And so people say, well, we already have licensing that says we don't charge, right? Or nobody's going to look at our documents. Well, you're right. They won't look at your documents. But if you read the licensing agreement, what they're going to do is they're going to look at the queries that you send up, because how can they not? So think about it. If I'm asking queries about, is this a exposure legally for town of Woodbury? That is information that that other company has about you. Is this a patentable thing? Is this this? Is this that? That's why if you look at most of the major companies won't allow their internal employees to use third-party AIs for certain types of work, which is really odd because you go and you find out that Apple, IBM, Microsoft, they're not allowing people access to the things that they're selling everybody else should be going to. As an idea, question comes in, it goes to Kaivu. We look down at what we call our smart answer knowledge base, which is the vetted and verified information. If it's not there, it goes on to the AI of your choosing. When it comes back, we set in a provisional and we go like that. Next time somebody asks that question, it comes back as provisional. It doesn't go to the AI, but it's at least the same one. It's consistent. It doesn't have to be the exact same question. It can just be a similar question. And you can kind of control that by a slider. How close does it have to match? Subject matter expert comes in, says, hey, here's a provisional. I've verified it. It's good. Now, they submit it for it to be approved. It actually goes, and then a manager has to approve it. You can change this around. It doesn't have to go this way. You can change the order for them. You can have certain people will always have access to an AI, and their things won't be cached. So the CEO or the mayor could ask questions and never have it get into the smart answer knowledge base for review. And on top of all of this, there's always a mechanism if you choose so that when the answer comes back, no matter how it is, somebody can say, I just want to ask an expert. Let me get to a human being. And that's the way we build it up. So if you're familiar with technology called expert systems, which was an earlier version of, say, not machine learning, but it was a way of extracting information from people in order to replicate in computers what humans do naturally. This is a way of kind of doing a soft expert system so that you're not going up to somebody and saying, hey, tell me exactly how you do your job, because I'm going to build an AI to do it, right? This is a way of saying, hey, people are going to ask you questions, and when they do, if you're tired of answering those same questions 4 times, you could suggest a way of improving the knowledge base, and that way they won't have to ask you that question again. And now it's vetted, it's verified, we know where it came from, and we know when we got it. Just because we're using an internal AI doesn't mean that you can't use any model you want. As long as that model's available, you can do it. It doesn't mean you couldn't use external ones. You can use external ones if you like, but the benefit of keeping it all in your organization to start is it allows you to start using AI, start using all the documents you want, but not exposing it to the rest of the world. And then you can slowly expand that out and make your perimeter permeable as you choose to. And it's all about that control. We have plugins to ITSM systems like ServiceNow, just a ticketing system. We have a rudimentary ticket system in ours. It's not meant to so that it solves problems like that. What it is I've got a question, who does it go to in order to answer the question? If something like that gets in there when it's really, hey, my computer's broken and I need somebody to fix it, then they can just ship it out to ServiceNow and have them open up a ticket and follow it through. It's built in Teams, so people don't have to learn a different system. And it's made so that it's flat-based pricing. Not that it's going to make a difference to you guys, because Bert likes giving away money. And my effort.
Makes Nairi happy.
Yeah. On average, it costs $100,000 to $500 to do an AI system. Takes about 6 months. Kaivu, it's less than a month. Again, the pricing doesn't matter for you, but it's anywhere from 24 to 60,000. So if you have anybody that's looking for something like this, please think of us. So we consider an internal use AI management solution. Technically, the term for this is called dialogue management. And we are the only Microsoft Azure certified dialogue manager in the Azure marketplace. We default to keeping all data and everything inside of your system, who asks, what the queries are and the like. And we're the only one out there. We're not SaaS, meaning we're not software as a service, meaning it doesn't have to go outside of your environment if you don't want. I'm Rick Wilson, the real Rick Wilson,
Nice.
and that's our presentation. Now, I am happy to pause now and answer any question you'd like, or I can simply show you what it looks like. So I'm going to pause now and ask, what are the questions?
While I have a one fresh, if
Yeah.
you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
In my organization, we've spent a lot of money for solutions that were very attractive at the time, only to find out that we didn't have the infrastructure in place to support it
Mm-hmm.
and to maintain it and to make use of it.
Yeah.
I noticed on your website that there was a statement about after onboarding, you could be live in as little as 30 days.
Yep.
That tells me that there's a certain amount of implementation when it comes to documents and all of your policies and all the things that you wanted to reference, right? What would you, in your opinion, for an organization like this, where would you put the uplift burden and the continued maintenance burden?
So all of our support is included with your wonderful pricing. So even for our clients, we're flat rate priced.
Sure.
So we support the solution, and we can do it in different ways. I don't know if you looked into our pricing structure. If we have access to just in Azure, they have these things called resource groups, and it's just basically a little containment area where resources, storage, compute, stuff like that lives. This solution installs into a special resource group called a managed resource group, where you can control who has access to it externally. We are the only people that have by default access to it if you choose to allow us to, and we can have access to it all the time, or we can have access to it only when you tell us to for a short amount of time, or we can have no access to it. So the reason I'm saying that is when we have full-time access, and it doesn't mean we have access to your data, it just means we have access to the things that are running, and we can patch the system and make sure it's up and running for you. The installation, when I do a test run installation in an environment that I fully control, takes under 2 hours start to finish. And most of that time is with me waiting for Microsoft to synchronize resources and populate them around what they call their data distribution network, CDN, content distribution network. And so the amount of time it takes to install and get it up and running, technically running, can be as low as 2 hours. What I found is that it usually takes a week or two for most organizations to get through the process of saying, yes, you can do it. And, oh, now we've got to grant you this, right? And somebody over here has to click. I've had some people that want to then stand it up without any information in it whatsoever and allow people to just start asking questions of AI, have them cache that information, and then review it as it comes in, okay? So in those instances, an organization like yours, in 2 hours, I could get up and running in 2 hours with no problem. If I wanted to come in and start populating in, and this is the Assist Management Console over here, this is the way that you actually manage the solution. I could come in here to Smart Answers, and I could say, manage the sources. You could say, hey, here are the things we want to create known questions and answers from. Scan these and put them out. Now, it's not like you put it to a folder. What we want are specific documents that you want to start from. So we would normally start with employee handbook or onboard HR or IT or remote workers first, and the person that's responsible for them. Get that up and running, get those people trained and good, and then we go into the next group. So we could kind of on a rolling week-to-week basis slowly start bringing this in more. Now, we could meet you ahead of time and say, hey, while we're installing this, while we're going through the approval process and your security, let's identify the 20 or 30, people that are really important, the groups that are really important, the documents that are really important. And I can give you a tool that will scan those and show you what these questions and answers are. I look at this document and there's 176 questions that were created out of it and answers, right? And I can export that to a spreadsheet, and I can have Bill look at this one and Mary look at those ones, and they say, oh yeah, those look pretty good. Oh, that's pretty bad. And I can say, look, here are 300 common IT questions and answers. We've modified them so that it talks about your as a user and your company and your thing. Does this make sense to you? And then you can modify them like that. So I'm not trying to tiptoe or to tap dance around it. It could be as quick as a day to get it up and running if you don't want any documents scanned in, or if you know exactly what they are and you say, hey, let's see what it's
I
like.
think the value is in having those internal documents, and I mean, for the town anyway.
Yeah, well, and everybody's got documents. Everybody's got, that's the thing, is that you guys have spent time and money to put stuff together so that everybody knows what's important. But now there's so much that you don't know how to get the answers that you want, right? So did that answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
And I guess a follow on when it comes to what the town would need. Fully licensed, is there a tier of teams that
Nope, just base level teams works.
for every user that would be referring to this, right?
Yeah. Now we can theoretically put this onto, like, if you have a SharePoint portal or something like that. This is you sound pretty technically knowledgeable. It's built as a web part, and so we can be published as a web part inside of a web page and stuff like that. Doesn't mean that you necessarily want to publish this for external use. This was designed for internal use only because of the way that we did it, and we figured that there are other chat bots out there that are for the public to external use, and we're not trying to swim in those depths. What we were trying to do is fill a hole that we saw, which was people are using AI, they don't know how to control it, they're having a hard time building up this knowledge of information and having confidence in, how do I just get started and say I'm using AI. We literally had people that just come to us and say, we just want to say we're using AI and we don't want to expose our shorts, right? Okay, here's how you can do that. And we've had others that are, and there's no shame, right? There's no shame in it. Everybody's at a different spot in where they're at with their journey in technology.
So are some of these more like canned answers that just would come along with this?
We can give you a series that we call them the Hot 100. You know, we were trying to come up with what are the most, the Hot 100 IT questions, the Hot 100 HR questions and stuff like that. We have assembled common questions and answers, and there are reams of these that are available. And you could get those and look through them, or you could just say, hey, Rick.
Just let it run.
Yeah, let it run. Let people ask the question. Let people come in here to assist and just say, you know, I just want to ask, you know, change my 401k. And if there's an answer, give it to me. And if not, allow them to ask a question of an expert. And when that expert answers a question, you can see there is an answer to the, how do I change my 401k? You see, you can do different things. You can email the person, you can go to their website, you could kick off an automation, all right? Or you could ask an expert. Now, if I ask an expert, it just creates a ticket. Well, I got a whole bunch of tickets in here already. Uncategorized ones. Let me just go and take a look at the 3 in HR, right? How do I change my 401k? And if you want, I can create one live. I don't want you to think I'm just using canned stuff here. And we intentionally decided it. Oh, this is in the wrong category, right? Oh, this is assigned to Rick. It should really be assigned to Bert, right? We made it color-coded and simple so that you could get up and running really, really fast, kind of like Apple approach to doing stuff. Now, when I come in here and I go, oh, I changed my 401k, I can see that the question that the person asked and what they answered with, and I can see the whole history of it and my response. And I could also come in here, I could say, hey, here's the question and here's the answer. I'm going to suggest an edit to this. And my edit is going to be with Woodbury Tech. That obviously got 2 capitals there. You can see I'm doing this live, right? Okay, and I save that. And I submit that. Well, when I come in here and I look at suggested edits now, I'll see that there's 1 suggested edit for how do I change it and 2 for password. If I'm now a manager, if I'm somebody that's approved to do this, I can come in here and I can say, hey, let me look at this. It was submitted right there, right? And I can approve that. Now, I'm not going to do it because it would cause a refresh, and we have it refresh every 15 minutes. I've got it set to refresh automatically. And it doesn't take long, but it takes maybe a minute or two for it to go through, and you don't have to sit there and watch it. But the way that I got set up right now will. If somebody says, yes, submit it and approve it, it goes off and now you keep going.
Sure.
And in about 15 minutes, unless you hit the publish now button, which will come up if there's a really hot thing that you need to get that out there right now, and you're saying, I'm willing to take the hit right now and not have that go on in the background. But I can come in here and I can look at everything about 401ks and I can see the whole history of it, right? I can see every single change that's ever been made to this question and answer and who did it.
This is just in the back-end management, right?
This is just in the back-end management system. Now, all of this data is in your tenant. If you want to install our system, it still sits in your tenant. So what does it mean that it's in your tenant? Well, now it means that you can start to leverage other stuff from Microsoft. One, I'm not looking at your data, it's your data. But now I can start to do stuff like I can have my Power BI go against it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I can start to do, if you're in a big company, really interesting stuff like saying, hey, do a machine learning model and show me the groupings of the questions that people ask at 6 months, 12 months, 18 months in this position. And you'll find that there are questions that come in for those roles. And then you can say, hey, show me the people that are differentials that are here at 3 months that are asking 12 and 18-month questions. Maybe those are the people that are ahead of the curve. Show me people that have been here 3 years and are asking 1 to 6 month questions. Now, are they doing it just because they're lazy and it's memory aid? Okay, that's great. Are they doing it because they don't learn? Maybe I need to retrain them, right? I can start doing things like you bring in a new system, and now I can come in and I can create a category for just the new system. And when people ask questions about it, I can have, these are the experts for this new system. Do you have a question about it? And you can do your training and you can see the questions that people have. Oh, our training answered that, but it didn't stick with them, right? Or maybe we need to retrain or we need to refocus this. Or we're going to roll out this system. Oh, I have questions on that. What are we doing this? What's going to do that? So it's a way of accumulating that knowledge into kind of these pots that you can actually start to leverage and utilize. Again, we made it so it was push button simple. You can come in here and you can turn on and off AI. You can make it so that only the experts have the access to AI. You can make it so that they can and can't reopen a closed ticket, see the tickets, make suggestions, rate it. All of that just by changing it. You can change the logo. You can change the color scheme. You can, all of those things are really meant to be simple. You can come in here and you can say, hey, I want a different internal AI. I want a different external AI. I can set up guide rails and I can say, here's a special word. And if they use this special word, it's going to get routed this way. And if they don't use the special word, it's going to default. It's going to default to go here. Okay. When we set this up, there's only 4 things that need to be configured in order for this to work. It's these top 3, the language service, and the default guide rail, meaning what is the default thing that we do? And the default thing we do is already pre-populated for you, so you only got 3. And if you want, when you do the installation, we will configure these 3 for you. Okay. And if you open these up, it is, here's how you do it. Here's how you go do it. And it was intentionally designed so that somebody could come in here and they could see like the health of the systems and whether or not it's running without having to know anything about the technology. Hey, it's green, it's red. Oh, let me talk to somebody in IT and say, hey, this bot service is down. I know I don't have the rights to restart it, but I know my system isn't working and it's not working because of this. Okay. We've even toyed with putting something in here that would allow it to reboot, but we found that most executives, most IT teams do not want that. We do not. We did make a refresh button. We have SLAs and alerts. You can change them. You can make them whatever you want. It'll match your existing one. You can add on as many categories as you want. There's no limit to who can be a subject matter expert or not. We have different roles, and all of these roles, you can see a smart answer manager can do these things. A super manager can do these things, right? And if I hit add, I'm going to add somebody. The only thing that we tap into your system for is a read level access to know who your users are so that you can click on them and choose them as opposed to having to fill in their email addresses correctly, right? And this just picks up off of the Entra ID, user ID. And that's all that we're doing there. And then this goes into a backend database that we keep. It's a table structure, so it's very inexpensive. You can up it to SQL if you want to pay more money and get faster responsiveness. It is designed with queuing and the like, and deployment slots, so we can put it out into a deployment slot, which means that we can give you the newest version of the software. You can flip over to it whenever you're ready, and if it doesn't work, you can flip it back, right? So we have a way of making it so that you can always keep on the latest version of the software, or you can just let your system run without doing anything, and then you can just sit here on 0.828, and I'll just say, hey, you're not up at 1.3 yet. You'll say, I don't want to be at 1.3. Okay, then you don't have this functionality. That's fine. That's about it. That's a lot of me talking.
Cool.
How do you handle like updates? Say we have an employee handbook and it might be a little bit behind the times. So, we upload it to kind of get it in there, and then we work on all these changes. So answers and questions that have been verified are now different.
So two different ways. You can basically, when somebody gets an answer back and they say, hey, I tried to do that and that was wrong. And you can say, oh, that was wrong. Let me update it so I can update them on the fly, right? It's a very organic way of doing it. You could look in here under, if you have a smart answer manager, you could look under here under your knowledge base or your sources, and you could say, we did the employee handbook or the aviation SOP. Show me all 1,436 of those, right? And we could work with you if you want, and we could say, here is what the old one was, and here's what the new one is. You want me to replace all the old with the new? We'll do that. You want to go through them one at a time? You can do that. You could come in here and you could grab all of these, and you could just say, I want to delete all of these, and I want to reload a new source. What do you mean reload a new source? Oh, I want to add files. What's the source name? Rick's file. Add that file. How do I do that? Oh, it's just like Windows, right? It's unstructured. Okay. And then when I get into those sources, I can do things like saying, hey, I want that source to all be in this category. Okay. Or it can be uncategorized. Now, the categories are just things that allow you to help route who it should go to and pull it out. But the short answer is you can do it pretty much any way you want. Organically, let people ask questions. And as the people that are in charge of that new HR handbook say, oh, yeah, we updated that. Let me submit an answer to that question that's different. Let me respond to that person, open up a chat with them, and submit a change. And I can put down in the note, hey, we changed this. Or you can do it in bulk. What I found is most people don't have time to go through and check stuff. And so we suspect that most people are going to default to just doing it organically. And then the people that come in and say, oh, here we go. Now, we could also go in and say anything in this category we want to have marked as provisional until we've had somebody ask the question and we verified it. We don't have that as a button yet to make that, to implement that. If that was a major concern, is something you could do. Does that answer it for you? Okay. Now I'll shut up.
So when the answers are not in the knowledge base
Mhm.
and you have to route the request to AI, you're saying that AI could be in-house? It doesn't need to be hosted externally?
So in our system, we have AI management. We've got internal AIs, we've got external AIs. Okay. And you can build up a guide rail here, and we can say, ask AI I want to send that query to the default internal large language model. And I have one here called Ask AI C, and which stands for Chat GPT, default to the external large language model. So the way that that would look is I come in here and give me a crazy question. Ask AI, I don't know, like how much an elephant weighs or how long boa constrictor lives or something wild that would not be in a normal database.
Well, I think you already asked.
How deep is the, here, I'm going to spell it wrong, trench, right? Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to ask this first, and it's going to go to my internal system, and it's going to show you, oh, no rec, right? Nothing matches. Please ask an expert, right? Now, Ask AI, I'm going to go against internal knowledge base, or I'm internal GPT. Okay, so this is now a generative answer. It'll come back. This is from the Azure AI Foundry resource. All right, that's internal. That has not gone outside of my tenant or my bubble. Ask AI C. How big is it? This one I'm actually sending outside of my tenant, and it's asking and it's queuing that, and it's coming back and see external. And you can see I get two very different answers. Not because one's internal and one's external, but because one of these was using the Azure AI Foundry and the other one was using ChatGPT. So by default, we set you up with a default Azure AI Foundry instance. It costs you nothing if you don't use it, and you can turn it on or off and say you want it or not. You could say, I only want people that are subject matter experts to be able to do that. So when they come in here and they look at a question, right? They can come in here and they could do a search using AI, right? And they get this answer from AI, wherever we tell it to go, and I can copy and close that answer, and I can come in here and I can say, oh, yeah, that's the answer, right? So now I've got the power of GPT, but the control of a human in the middle reviewing it instead of it just being, oh, the AI said it was right. Why did you turn off that woman's gas in the middle of winter? Well, the AI told me to, right?
Can you control the access to knowledge base resources by user group? Let's say he wanted to ask a question about a specific department's contract, and he didn't want.
Yeah. So I can come in here with different guide rails.
Sure.
And inside of the guide rail, I can do things, I can put in conditions. And I can say the sender is equal to or not equal to this, then it can go here, right? And I can do things like, and by the way, I also want to send a chat or an email when somebody has asked this question of this, so that I have a way of doing it. Now, every query is right now logged. We have a new update coming out, so you can then actually control at a global and a micro layer what is logged or not logged. So we could come in and say, CEO's questions are never logged. Lawyers' questions, CLO, never logged. Everybody in this is always logged. CLO is not logged if they go here. They are logged if they go here, right? Because what you want to get to is somebody asks the question, how are we doing financially as a company? And if it's a regular person, they can go against a GPT that has access to public knowledge. If they're in the accounting team, they may go against a GPT that has more privileged information that it has access to, and only a few things. And this is the way we set it up this way, is you control all of that for your backend. We just point to it. Sure. And we can say who can and can't go to there. And if the C-suite asks it, they've got this Uber version that has all of this information that, might spill the beans on stuff if anybody saw. Yeah. So the nice thing about this is you educate an employee on a behavior, and then you update the model or you update something else. The employee doesn't have to change what they're doing. Oh, I know I go to Ask HR for all my HR questions. That aren't answered by the other one, right? And then, oh, we went from GPT 3.5 to GPT 28, right? Or we decided to go to Grok now, or we decided to go to, you know, whatever the next DeepSeek 59, whatever it is. God help us all. But you can change that, but the employee doesn't have to change. They don't have to learn. And that's a frustrating thing, right? Think about if you had taken all this time 2 years ago to train your employees on how to use the very first LLMs that came out. I'm not saying that that's wasted, but how much of that training now doesn't align with where we are today, right? I don't want to take amongst my average employees and treat them how to be an AI expert. I want them to be the expert in what they're doing on their job. I want AI to make their job better. I want to make them more efficient. I want to make them more confident, but I don't want them to be an AI expert. I want them to be the expert in the job they're doing. I just want to make it better with AI.
Yeah, and that's kind of my question is how could somebody who has a certain role ask AI, hey, what am I missing? How do I improve myself? How do I make myself more productive?
So there has to be a distinction here between what AI tools they have access to. So if you have Microsoft Copilot, we can have you point to Copilot here. And we can theoretically have, since Copilot has access to all your stuff, you could have that conversation with Copilot. But really, you can have these conversations with Copilot in anything. And so that kind of question where look at all of my data and help me write this thing better, that's a Copilot question, or my personal instance of Grok or Claude or whatever, right? This is more focused on the day-to-day running of the organization and how do I use AI for that. It doesn't mean that we couldn't control that and that we're not looking at it, but what we found is that most people are going to use Copilot if they're in Microsoft for improving the work that they're doing. It's when they have questions about stuff and it's like, hey, go out and grab this. And then Copilot comes back with something and then they're like, is this right or not? If I'm asking Copilot or AI about something about my own work, I know it. I'm the expert on my own work. But if I'm asking it something about this department or that department, it's because I don't know. And that's where I really want the centralized institutional knowledge to grow and be auditable and controlled.
So the sources that you had listed up there, are there any sources that don't have to be just simply static? Could they be dynamic sources like a database? Can you do SQL queries across multiple databases?
So now you're getting into something really interesting for me.
And me.
So we are, this is designed for making static or refreshed on a normal basis, okay? What you're talking about is something that I would utilize the tenant componentry to do a defined knowledge set inside of Microsoft's or Azure. The Azure Factory is what they're calling it now, where it does a dynamic lookup and it applies all these rules. It doesn't mean that I couldn't access it from here, but I would probably say, let's access that by a guide rail so that this type of question goes to this AI that then does that query and everything else. And then I would probably exclude that from the caching because that's dynamic information that's going to be changed every day, week, month, or whatever, right? So it does take a little bit of thought on what you're doing with it. So if it's going to be this dynamic thing, then yeah, I don't want to cache that and have that be consistent because there's no value in it being consistent. This is for the static information that I want to stay same. It changes maybe every quarter, more than likely every year or every couple of years, or every time I go through a new SOP audit or ISO audit or something like that. But we could point to those resources that are dynamic. But what I would do is I would point to an AI that was utilizing the internal controls to know when to refresh it or not. And that way you can have the expertise that you want with Azure AI Factory, but people don't need to know all of that on the back end, and you don't have to say, oh, I came up with a new one, right? You can just pop it in. And you can see that one of the queries that we did actually was going to an Azure AI Factory source, right? This was a Foundry resource, Azure AI Factory agent Foundry resource. And if you haven't played with Microsoft's Azure AI Factory, you should totally get in there. It makes a lot of the frustrating things that we had to do in the early days to make some of the Microsoft Azure stuff, AI stuff work a lot better. And that's an area where I'd say, hey, get 2 or 3 people and train them on that, if in that area. And what we're willing to offer is to say, if you want some of that stuff up and running, we will get that up and running for you, right? We'll get 1 or 2 Azure AI Factory with dynamic queries and stuff like that, show you how to do it, show you how to set it up so you can point to it, and then you're off to the races. And if you say, hey, Rick, I need, show me how to do it. Even if you don't sign with me, if you call me up and say, hey, Rick, I need help, I'll help you. Even if Bert wasn't Bert. Maybe even if Bert isn't Bert. So I know you guys got a lot to do, but I'm happy to stay here and answer questions, but I want to make sure you're getting value out of this.
Thank you. For Paul and Irene, if they decided to adopt this, I know you said that you could just let it run without much input, but to truly get the value out of this product, they would give access to like every department or so. What would be the weekly requirement for them to maintain?
So the to maintain it once it's up and running is no more work than what is being done right now, because it's people asking questions. It's just them answering them in a different way and then saying, oh, I'm responding to it. Now, there is a little bit of oversight. Now, if you can take the oversight out and have the same person that answers and suggests the improvement to the question, be the person that says, yes, I've got the rights to approve it too. Okay, that's fine. You're just taking a little step back from role-based access control, right? So if you keep that role-based access control, you're going to add a little bit of burden on somebody that's going to have to look through and say, oh, these are the ones that I need to approve. And maybe, I don't know, depending on how many changes, a couple of minutes a day, look through them if they're knowledgeable for them. And there's spots when you suggest changes to it where you can put in personal notes and say, hey, I'm changing this because of this. And if they have the discipline to do that, then the person looking at it can say, why is this changed? Oh yeah. And if we find that it's too onerous to click on them to do that, like maybe you're getting 20 or 30 of them at a time, I can give you a view that's basically just a grid, and you can see, here's the change, here's why, approve or disapprove, approve them all or don't approve. What I would suggest doing is, if you want to roll this out, we get the technical part of it up and running. While we're doing that, we talk about what departments and who knows specific departments. And then we say, okay, what is the main information that you get, right? What is the 20% of the questions that you get all the time that is, answers 80% of the questions, right? There's an 80-20 rule. I always get it backwards. But what are the questions you get all the time? And what would the answers for those be? Let's put those in first. What are the sources that you wish people would read that answers the questions that they don't read or they forget about? Tell me the 3 or 4 or 20 of those. Let me scan those. Hey, let's sit down for an hour or 2 and go through those questions and answers, and you tell me yes or no, and I'll sit here and edit them on the fly.
Yeah, does the town have a frequently asked questions page?
No.
Okay.
But so you're maybe talking 4 hours worth of effort, and then for the ongoing basis, you're probably talking for a supervisor an hour a week, maybe, to take a look at it in the beginning and say, oh, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad, if they're doing the auditing. And then from there, nothing. And we can set up, I love doing management by exception, so we can set up some automated reports if you want, and we can show things like who's submitting the most changes, right? Who's answering the most tickets? Is the questions that were coming in to the tickets that we're creating going up or down? Is it doing that because we're getting usage out of it or because our system isn't working for you, right? And these are all just canned questions and answers. What are the questions that people are asking of AI? right? Who's asking the most questions? What kind of questions, what kind of tickets are being opened, right? Things like that. Who's creating the most tickets? Who's answering them the most? Who's kicking them off to their friend to answer instead of them, right? Who's the person that gets 20 tickets a week or a month and then answers 2 of them but transfers 18, right? All of that comes out in the wash, right? Then it's up to the manager. Hey, are they doing that because that's a person that's really good at delegating and knows that that other person knows the answer, right? Or and that they've answered, they've took the time and they put in a whole bunch of questions and answers already in the thing. And you don't have to wait for somebody to ask a question, right? If I'm an expert, I can come in here to the dashboard and anytime I can propose a new smart answer. I can do it here. I can do it in tickets. I can do it in 5 different places, right? So anybody that's a subject matter expert can come in and say, hey, I looked in the knowledge base. It's not there. We should have something for this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think something like this would be good for some type of proof of concept or pilot, and maybe base it on, like types of questions that different departments are asking, like a frequently asked question on steroids. They ask a question and they get answers, but then they get even a deeper response. Here's who to contact. Here's a link to go to, who to call.
Yeah. Or you can just set it up and say, hey, just come here. And anytime you ask a question in the system, it just goes to our internal AI and returns it. And you can just see what people are asking without even building up the knowledge base. We can turn off the knowledge base completely and you can just see what's happening. What are people asking questions? Right?
Do the end users see that? Like the question you asked was asked by 10% of others? Or?
No, all that they see is I'm tinking. Here's the answer. Here's where it came from. If I allow them to see where the source was.
Paul asked the same question.
Multiple times.
We need to check Paul's diet
Yeah.
because he's
Yeah,
not
that's
getting
right.
enough coffee.
Exactly.
Keyboards. Is it possible to because I know, like when you think about asking AI a question, it's always like, okay, which AI are you using? Is there a way you could ask a question across multiple AIs?
And compare the answers.
Yeah, exactly.
So in guide rails, I can come in here to a guide rail and I can say, select it and go here, right?
Because it would be kind of neat for the end user, and this happens to me a lot. Like a lot of times, like I have Google Gemini, it'll come back, it'll give me 2 different columns. Here's answer 1, here's answer 2. Which one do you like better?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and it's almost the same way. Like if I ask a question and it says, "Well, here's what ChatGPT said, here's what Grok said, here's what Azure said," or something, right?
Yeah. So I now ask Cameron where I'm going to go to a default external and a default internal. So now if I come in here to here, and we're building out that's not what I want. Now I'm going to show you something that isn't pretty. All right. What I'm hoping to show you is to show you that the capability is there. We just haven't implemented it in a way that's really pretty yet. So what I've done now is that I've created a guide rail that goes first to an external one and then an internal one. All right. And so we see that the first responded back was the Azure because it got it fast. Oh, and it probably has a halt on it. But the short answer is yes. We could do it so that it does where it says, hey, go to the known knowledge base and go to a GPT.
Yeah.
Go to this one and this one. And right now it is limited to a default one, one default internal, one default external, and I can change which one that is.
Yeah.
But it's whichever one I've set. We have a version of code that we're working on right now, which allows me to say this one goes to this GPT, this one goes to this GPT.
Yeah,
And that would also allow us to say to do to multiples.
yeah, that would be,
Um,
depending on the question, it may go to different
mhm.
LLMs.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anything else? Does the owl have any questions?
The owl knows all and sees all.
It's just, who is that idiot that you
Yeah.
brought in to talk? Well, if that's good, I will go up and tell Bertrand to come on down and help you guys again. It was a pleasure talking to you all.
Oh, great.
You too, thank you.
Thank you.
My email is rwilson@kyvoo, kyvoo.com. So if you have any questions whatsoever, it doesn't have to be about our product. If you have any technology questions or the like, I'm happy to talk. I go in and I give presentations over at the Woodbury Senior Center occasionally about tech. I think my next one is on passwords. So
No.
Do not use password as a password.
Got a capital P.
Or 1, 2, 3. Right.
wait, how did you know my password? We gave one on password managers. We gave one on technology. We gave one on how does AI work. We gave one on is Google listening to my phone?
We should bring him in for a staff meeting on Teams.
I am happy to answer. I love Teams. I'm sorry to say.
It was funny before when the question was like, why do I use Teams? I'm like, why is Paul making me use Teams all of a
Yeah,
sudden?
so it's more like that's more like it.
But everyone's
Right.
adapting. Everyone.
Yeah, they are.
Everything's a compromise.
Come back yet?
You passed.
Yes, you can come back now.
And fine, I'll never come back. It's a pleasure meeting you all.
Rick, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rick.
You have a great day.
Thanks.
Great meeting
you. Thanks.
Bye, Bert.
See you, Rick. I think we should just discuss what you want to discuss, Paul,
Okay.
on, I did not have an opportunity to send it out, but I was hoping that you would be able to, I can. don't have-
Actually, most of the stuff I think is we can just speak to it.
Okay.
So I've got a couple of items that we're trying to work through right now. So the first one is we received a cybersecurity grant for specifically to go to GCC. This was part of the state's cybersecurity. They got some money from the feds and they're kind of doling the stuff out. And so back in 2025, our interim fiscal officer put in a request based on a quote from Vancord of moving us to GCC. And then she also put a request in to get a year's worth of license. All right. So, and we actually got everything that we had asked for, which was a total of, the total budget was $54,806. Thank you. At least it didn't go into some weird movie. So the federal share that we got was $43,844. The town has an 80-20 match, so we need to match $10,961 for a total budget of $54,806. So the Board of Selectmen last week approved accepting this grant. However, I'm not moving forward with it because I wanted to talk to you guys before doing this thing. Because what I'm afraid of is, the requirement is to actually move into a GCC tenant. And so I started doing a lot of research last week and trying to figure out, is it worth it going into GCC or not? And it turns out there's two levels of GCC. There's a GCC they called G3 and G1, and then there's a G5. The G5 is considered GCC high. So then I started diving into what is GCC high versus regular GCC, and basically GCC looks like it's an E3 tenant that's just separate, and there's no restrictions of who can access the data center or anything like that. GCC high is very specific. It says that it needs to be in the United States, and it only can be a U.S. citizen that's actually in that data center, accessing anything that's going on in that data center. So that GCC high is between $60 and $93 a seat per month. And we have 45 E3 and 14 or 15 E1s right now. So I did some looking and saying, okay, compare the E's to the G's, GCC, not GCC high. So you'll see in an email, as soon as Bert gets to send these things out, I put basically, I should have brought down my other computer. I could have thrown it up here, but essentially it looks like the G3 license and the E3 license are basically the same. I mean, I'm looking at through this thing. It looks exactly the same, and the pricing is pretty close, which surprised me. The E3 commercial tenant right now is going out to about $39 with Teams, $39 per seat per month. And the G3 tenant, I was seeing actually a little bit less than that, but I think the Microsoft, because of the problem is that to get GCC, you've got to be authorized, right? So you need to go to Microsoft to say, yay, you can move into a GCC. And then I can start having a conversation with a reseller. That's where my concern is right now, because I know resellers. I saw one reseller was selling a license for $23 a month. All right. That's like significantly below everything else, right? Almost $15 a seat less. So what am I missing? And I'm probably missing a number of things. And that's what I was reading as going through this whole thing, is that, a lot of these guys will go low until you get in there and say, oh, you want that? Okay, that's an extra $5. Oh, you want that? It's an extra $3, right? So I don't want to go through that because, again, we're using Vancord to try and do this thing. So my concern, obviously, is should we be going to G3? Should we be accepting this grant? Because obviously when we move from the E tenant to the G tenant, that's a significant change. And we're not going to be able to, at the end of our year of getting, money from the feds, trying to flip the thing back to E3, because that's probably going to be another $20,000 to $30,000 to move things back and forth. So whatever we pick, we're going to have to stick with.
Did you determine that you actually need a G3 or a GCC to go to a .gov? Because
no, you do
I have
not.
my reservations.
You do not.
Yeah.
You do not. However, if we don't do that and move to a .gov with that, we're paying for the entire thing. I've got an opportunity with the grant to get that whole thing paid for, or 80% of it paid for, right? And so that's where I'm going. It's like, and obviously we're going to have difficulty trying to, predict the future. Are they really going to, all of a sudden they're going to realize, oh, GCC, I could get an extra $10 a month because it's taxpayer money and nobody's going to argue. And I understand that we're going to kind of miss that. But so that's kind of where I'm at. What am I missing?
I mean, has there been like any type of cost benefit done? I mean, like based on like what you say, it's so much per seat, is there something that says, look, we need this to be X amount of dollars for X amount of seats for whatever type of outcome you're going to get?
So we looked at all the people that need things, right? And we did find that we needed a 3 license, because the 3 license gets you Office, right? And it gets you all of those things. And then there are a group of people that don't need Office and such, so they're on the 1 license. And like I said, so what I did was I went and did I think we got that piece worked out. We need only 45 people with a 3 license and we need 15 people with a 1 license, right? But the question is does the G go in front of that or does the E go in front? Right now we have E. All right. But we have E with .org. So we're going to need to go through and start updating the tenant, doing that whole migration over to .gov, right?
So you can be at E3 and go to .gov.
Yes.
Okay. So it's really just a question of whether you go to E3 or G3. And,
Yes.
And what's the difference?
Well, right. And
Right.
if we decide G and we're pretty comfortable that that's okay, doing the G3, meaning it's just, the non-high security GCC, and it looks like the pricing is going to be about the same, we can utilize 80%, at least for the first year of paying for the tenant.
Is there a G1?
There is.
There is. Okay. All right.
Yes.
So you said that the G3 and the E3 are roughly the same.
Yep.
Is the G1 and the E1 roughly the same? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Right. And to me, the only difference that I saw in doing all of this research was one is in one tenant versus another tenant.
Mhm.
That's it. Everything else looks like it's basically the same. And what I didn't and I guess that the tenant piece is that you don't have to worry about somebody else go wandering in there. It's going to be a government entity because it's got to be, you've got to be authorized to get into GCC, right? So it's going to be, some type of government entity, or it's going to be something that, Microsoft has looked at and said, yes, this is okay, versus you walking to E3. I mean, it could be anybody walking in there, right? If they're willing to pay.
So the benefit of the grant is you can use the grant no matter what for the conversion to .gov.
Yes.
You would like to leverage, or you would looking at what the benefits would be to go into the G3, and then you could use one year of that grant for 80% of that as well.
No, so the grant is actually, if you read the grant, it actually says moving to GCC.
So it's specific.
It's very specific. Both the implementation as well as the license.
So you'd have to go to a G series license.
Yes. And that's the reason why, so now I have this grant. Do I execute the grant? Because when I execute the grant, it's going to put us into the GCC environment. But while I'm doing that, Brian, right, I get to move to .gov, and that whole fee that we're going to have to pay Vancord to go through this will be basically 80% covered by a grant.
So, but was it the cybersecurity that says GCC, or was it, because I know Vancord basically wrote that. So is it them saying?
Oh, that's what it is. I mean,
Right.
yes, but cybersecurity is saying, like that was what the grant was written for, right? The grant that they gave us is exactly what we asked for. And, Vancord did write this, and Vancord did say GCC, did not say migration to .gov. It said migration to GCC. Unfortunately. So.
But is there the ability to change that wording potentially?
I mean, we'd have to go back to.
Usually not supposed to work.
Yeah. It'd be tough to change that. I don't understand the difference between a .gov, changing to .gov versus GCC.
So that's actually two different things. All right. So changing, because the first one is changing your domain, right? Your domain's going from .org to .gov, right? And .gov, that came from Homeland Security, right? They vetted us and said, yes, you are a government entity. You're allowed to go into this domain. So now we need to go through a migration, and whatever tenant we have, right? So we can do it in the enterprise tenant.
Oh, you can go to .gov and remain in the enterprise tenant. Okay.
Yes,
All right.
exactly. So, but then there's a whole process that you need to go through, because now you're changing your domain. So now you've got DNS servers and blah, 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 all the other stuff that goes along with that change. So what I believe happened back in 2025 is that when the previous administration went and asked Vancord, hey, we got an opportunity here. Vancord says moving to GCC because that's what everybody's doing. But we subsequently have found out that that is not what you need to do. You just need to go, because they're two separate things, right? .gov, moving your domain, And then if if you're doing DoD work, you need GCC high.
I see.
Right? We don't do that. So there's no reason for us to be in GCC. However, as long as those two things are equivalent and the pricing is going to be equivalent, I don't see a downside. And that's kind of what I'm asking you guys is,
Right.
is there a downside? Is there something that I'm missing by going through and doing that thing? Because then I can accept this and, we got our first year. I just don't want to screw the town over in subsequent years and find out that, GCC is on a rocket path versus this other one being fairly flat.
Did you happen to see a history of pricing?
No.
Oh,
Because, the problem is, Brian, is that GCC is like secret. You can't see, anytime you go up there and you say, show me, ask for quote, right? Versus I'm in E3 and I can see everything that's in there. Now I did, Copilot, I did a search on that figuring it's Microsoft, right? And you can see, and it came back and it was actually $7 cheaper coming out of chat or out of Copilot.
Mhm.
That GCC was $7 cheaper than the other stuff, or than the enterprise license. And I'm going like, then Nairi and I are talking, we're going like, that doesn't look right. Why are they, you would figure that it would be $7 more than enterprise and not cheaper.
So you're talking G3 would be GCC.
Yes.
So if you go to G3, and you're saying and you have G1 as well. So we could still. So basically, it's government as opposed to enterprise.
Right.
Is the difference.
Yeah.
And
so Bert, so that's kind of my very first question is
Yeah.
that's what my research shows us. My first question is, am I missing something? Right. And so I think, if you guys could take a look at that spreadsheet, that's my first question. Am I missing something with that thing? Because to me, it looks like it doesn't matter.
what's the timeline on this, Paul?
I mean, I think it looks like the period of award is to 11/30/2027. So it looks like I may have.
So
But you
so
know what?
let
But
me-
Bert, here's my concern though, right? We got the .gov thing. I really want to get this project over with. I really don't want to obviously wait until 2027. But can I wait 4 weeks? Absolutely.
So I will go back home and I will send out all the information that you sent to me
Yep.
this morning. I will send out to the rest of the team and ask that they review it, and maybe we can review it. I'm a little concerned about the freedom of speech, freedom of information.
Yep.
Component to this, but if we could.
This stuff is not. There's no cybersecurity concerns about
No, I
what
understand.
we're talking about. So I think it's just right. This one doesn't need anything because all of this stuff is actually everything I gave you is public.
Public information. Okay.
And it came out of the public information.
So maybe what I'll do is I will send it to the team, but I'll also send it to. I would have sent it to Deb. Can I send it to Sadie and say, hey, please publish this so that the public can see it? And I'm just. I know I did that when I was on the Conservation Commission, and that satisfied the freedom of information concerns.
Okay.
I'm only concerned about freedom of information concerns.
Yeah.
And there aren't too many people that are going to be reviewing this or be concerned about it, but I want to get it to everyone, but I want them to be able to respond back. And if they respond back to me,
Yep.
I can submit their response to
Me.
to Sadie and to April was putting it on. Just so we put it on the website. It's just
No reason for this to go on a website.
okay.
I mean, if we get a freedom of information request, we'll just provide the document. There's no reason to put all this stuff up on a website at this point
Okay.
because this is operational
Okay.
right now.
I'm fine. If I'll send it to I'll send it to the entire team.
Yep.
Anything they send back, they'll send to you, we'll send, they'll send to me. And
Send to you and then you
and,
send
and
to
I'll
me.
send it to you.
Right.
Okay. All right. You guys good with that? Okay.
Okay.
So the spreadsheet, is that gonna be a spreadsheet with E, a spreadsheet with G, and some type of comparison? When you say, what am I missing?
I thought I had it on my.
Okay.
I guess the thing that I would question is the quote from Vancord for moving to .gov. I'm speculating that a lot of that cost is actually the migration
Yes,
to the GCC license,
Yep.
correct.
where you may not actually have to pay anywhere near that much money
Yes.
if you stay on an E3 and just do the .gov migration.
Yep.
I can't speak intelligently to what that cost burden is.
So the
We can
quote,
only
so
go
you
with
actually, you guys have the quote from, when Bert sends that out,
Yeah.
you'll have the quote from 2025, that exactly what Vancord said. Last week I asked Vancord to redo the quote. All right. Cause obviously it's a year old. So give me an idea. I can actually send them a note back saying, I want you to do the same thing. Quote me just a conversion to .gov, staying on an E license, and see what they say.
So they're also doing the migration as well.
So they would do, yes. So the quote is actually migrating to the G tenant,
Yeah.
right? As well as doing a .gov conversion. So they're actually combining the two things.
But if they're doing the migration, could they help answer that question too? Like, once we migrate, are we gonna gain? Are we gonna lose?
Yes, I will ask those guys the exact same question. I'm just not confident that I'm going to get the answer that, because I have a feeling, and this is what Nairi and I have talked about, they're probably going to come back and tell us go to GCC high.
Largely from what I've seen is E versus G, the same thing. There's just increased compliance standards with G3, so you may not get hot patches or
Yes.
or some of those other compliance things. It'll be a little slower and to get
Right.
those integrated, or implemented, excuse me.
Yeah.
But they're the same thing.
Right.
Essentially.
Yeah, it's just, you're right. It's got a couple of compliance things in there and that's it. And I did read that they are slower.
Right.
They're slower getting patches through because they've got to go through, whatever ITAR or whatever other item that they've got. So that's the other difference that I saw in there. You're right. Thanks.
And I think the quote from Vancord, if I remember correctly, it did have the GCC high because it was pretty expensive for the license.
Is there a thought or a concern that at some point the town will be required to go to a .gov?
So there has been 3 times has come up on General Assembly. It has never gotten out of the General Assembly. So it's never actually made it to the floor for a vote. But there has been a push to get all municipalities onto .gov. And then they would obviously it's kind of like ADA compliance, right? You need to have it done by this date, right? So let's just say it passes in the 2027 General Assembly, probably not going to have to do it till 2029. But I'm looking at it, it's like, look, I mean, we've already got the .gov domain already set. Let's just get it done now. To me, it makes a lot of sense. And all of our neighbors are switching over. Middlebury just switched over to .gov. Southbury's already on .gov. Litchfield in 2025 moved over to .gov. So, I mean, it makes sense for us to do this thing, and we have the money actually put aside for this migration.
Yeah.
So I think we ought to just do it, and be ahead of the curve on this one.
So what you're really asking this team is, should we stay with E or go to G?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And what am I missing? If we do that, right, because to me, again, it looked pretty equivalent.
Mhm.
And then, what are possibly some of the pitfalls that we've got when we go to do that?
And if we go to G, there's a grant that we can utilize.
Yes,
But if we stay with E, that grant will not be able to be utilized.
correct. At least as far as we know, I mean, we could go back and we could ask the grant people, all right, is this,
Mhm.
that we really didn't mean .gcc. We more meant like, .gov.
Got it.
So
Got it.
we'll see where that goes. Okay. So that was number one. Number two, our website migration. So we've been doing a lot of work around that, and there's again a document that I sent Bert that kind of goes through the characteristics of a municipal website, some of the things that we're looking at. And then, and the back side of the thing was we looked at a short list and took the companies and then put that through Copilot and just said, give me the pros and cons of all of these different, the top website providers. And, essentially Civic Plus is the one that's constantly popping up. So I don't know Brookfield, do they use
I
Civic
believe
Plus?
we just migrated a few years ago. I think we're on Civic Plus.
Okay.
Very fun.
Just about, I mean, like, so what I did was I did a search of the towns around the Woodbury, basically are the size of Woodbury. So it's like Suffield, and there were, Haddam, I think was in there. So there was like the top 3 above us and the top below us. And I think of those 11, 6 out of the 11 use Civic Plus. So I'm kind of leaning towards that's probably the company that I ought to be looking at. But again, what I'm looking to you guys is, take a look at it. We've got a specific set of requirements. Obviously, the first one is that we need to be ADA compliant. I think the government just changed it. It was supposed to be April 27. I think they pushed it out to April 28. I kind of heard that, but I'm not 100% sure if that's what came up. So if we are not ADA compliant, what that does is that opens up the town, number one, to a $100,000 fine from DOJ that says that you're not compliant. But number two, it'll also open up liability to the town, because if somebody in California decides that they want to go look at the Woodbury website and it's not compliant, I could see class action suits popping up all over the place.
ADA
So,
compliant for a website?
yes. So for hearing impaired,
Yeah, the
So-
fields have to be-
right,
Okay.
right, and then you've got to worry about colorblind, you've got to worry about blind, right? So I mean,
Alright.
all of that. So you need screen readers.
And
you
so
need-
migration will involve ADA compliance.
Yes.
Okay.
And that actually is what started this whole thing, Bert, of going through. Not only are we looking at, adding some capabilities to our website, but it was also because of this DOJ thing that we really need to make this thing compliant. So,
Municipalities under 50,000. You have until April of 2028.
okay, so it did shift out a year. So again, one of these things where it's part of our 26, 27 fiscal year budget. So I'm not going to want to sit on this thing for too long. And,
Got it.
again, I want to kind of push the thing through. And then on top of it, we're going to be able to clean up our website, because we've got like 400 pages in there. And, you do a search on there and you'll find stuff that like we have not done in 15 years. So and the stuff is all showing up. So we want to get that cleaned up. The other thing is that meeting agendas and meeting minutes, they've got a module that's really pretty slick. And right now, you have to send something over to Maria. Maria's got to print it. She's got to stamp it. She's got to sign it. She's got to rescan it in and then post it, right? This module will actually just send it over to her. She clicks a button. It does all of that automatically for her, and then we'll post it right up on the website. So it's just one button click. She can do it from home. She's not going to have to drive in and do the stamping and all that other stuff. So
She's going to be thrilled.
yes. And I think all of us are going to be thrilled as
God,
well,
yes.
because now we're not going to worry about, hey, Maria, did you get that?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, right.
it didn't. So now I got to cancel a meeting, or I got to, I got to turn it into a special meeting or whatever.
Yep,
So I think
yep.
it's going to be it's a big plus for us. And then there's all other kinds of other things that are in Civic Plus. Now, the problem with Civic Plus is that it's probably the most expensive one that's out there, but we cheaped out 5 or 6 years ago, and the website's caused us problems. And I don't I'm trying to future proof this thing. And yes, we're going to have to pay a little bit more, but I'm looking at all of the other towns now. Specifically, Roxbury is probably one of the most fiscally conservative places that I know, and they use Civic Plus. They've spent all of that money to
Yep.
put this thing together, and they actually have added a number of other things that are on Civic Plus besides the things that we're looking at. So they've got, I don't even remember half the stuff that they've
Yeah,
got on
yeah.
there, but they I talked to the IT guy over there, and he's okay with it. He said there's some things that are quirky.
Mhm.
But there are a lot of the other stuff is actually really good. So
It's
my
also
ask to
easily
you
managed
guys,
by, you don't have to be an IT expert
Right.
to manage
Yes.
it. It's very easily managed by anybody who's
yes,
trained for a couple hours.
exactly. And the other thing is that it always makes sure that you're ADA compliant. So now you're putting up, not only did they make it ADA compliant at the time that you converted over,
Mhm.
anytime you load a document in, they have a bot that will go in there and make sure that whatever document is loaded is ADA compliant. So it will add the screen readers. It'll add, the color. They'll add, the ability to change languages and things. So, and they index it so that now, it's obviously
Yeah.
searchable
Yeah.
and all kinds
Yeah.
of stuff. So I kind of like the website, but again, my ask to you guys is if you could take a look at what we have in there, see what you think. Again, just come back with a recommendation. Looks like it's the right thing to do.
Right, okay.
We could probably check out Roxbury's.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
And
Middlebury just deployed Civic Plus last week. All right, and they're still building up the look and feel, but that you can take a look at them. And there was somebody else that was really, really nice. I don't remember. I'd have to go back in and take a look. We got a list of ones to go take a look at, and I'm thinking it was Haddam. Maybe
If you send that to me, I can send that.
Yeah,
out
I
as
can do
well.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
this may be a little bit cart before the horse, but I noticed you mentioned developing an RFP. If you decide that Civic Plus is your answer, I believe they have vendors on state contract. That way
They-
you can just
yeah.
avoid some of that.
They're not on this. We did some of that
They're
work
not directly
today.
on a state contract, but there's vendors.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the other one is that we found out that they're on
Omnia.
Omnia.
Okay.
And so I checked with the Board of Finance today and saying like, all right, if they're on a consortium contract like that, can we go into no bid?
Yeah.
And I believe that we can.
Yeah. Because you're going to get, you're going to get from an RFP, it's going to be wide and
And yes,
varied.
and
Yeah.
very varied.
Yeah.
And then you get into the vetting process of all of that to make a choice when.
Yep.
If you decide you know what you want, then an RFP really didn't.
Right. And that's where I'm when I first did this thing, I'm going like, I think we're going to need an RFP. But then, like I said, I was sort of working with Nairi and saying, can't find them there. They said that they're not on the state contract, but I also found out they're on a GSA contract. They're actually on a Fed contract. So I believe that that's the other way that we get around this is that they're on a federal contract. So, we can probably go no bid on that.
So does the, whether or not you choose Civic Plus, what is the website? What is the relationship with Vancord? Do they have any involvement?
No.
Integration?
None.
Okay. So they're going to be kept separate.
Yes.
So the website wouldn't be wanting to do any type of data access into the Vancord world or any other.
Not that I'm aware of. Anything that goes on the website, if they're starting to talk about trying to get into something else, it may be in our ERP system, but that again won't be anything to do with Vancord. We'd probably be working directly with Civic Plus on trying to put the hooks in to get things done.
So like when you go to the town website right now, let's say if I go to land records,
Yeah.
and I want to look at my land records, is that the website calling some specialized system?
GIS.
Okay, GIS.
Yep.
And so obviously Civic Plus sounds like it works. With all
Yes,
that.
it does. Yep.
Okay.
And, and then we use OpenGov for the permitting process. It's got to hook into OpenGov to go through. And actually Civic Plus actually has their own permitting system. So they actually have a whole bunch of things that are out there, but it's nowhere near as robust as what OpenGov is. So not advocating for that, but this will give us, it kind of opens up a Swiss Army knife type thing where I can actually start to add things in there and make the thing a little bit more robust. If the town thinks that this is the way that we want to go, right? There are a lot of other modules that are in there. I thought, well, like, there's some pretty cool stuff in there, but I'm going like, it's probably not the technology. I think when we did we walked in there and said with the kid in the candy store thing, it was like 3 times the price of what we're actually looking to pay for right now, because there was a whole bunch of modules. Oh, that looks good. Let's throw that in there. And it was like, we got the bill. It was like, whoa, time out. Right. So we cut it back to the absolute necessary stuff. Okay. I'm going to skip over number 3 here for 1 second. So there was another one that popped up today. The Connecticut Division of Emergency Management sent out a letter that basically explained there's a $1,000 stipend that we are eligible for if we want to set up a redundant system for our emergency operations center. So basically a satellite connection that would actually act as a backup to our fiber. And if fiber goes down for whatever reason, we still will have landline, we'll still have internet access through satellite. All right.
Through a satellite.
Through satellite. So, when I started looking at this thing, I started taking a look at Starlink. And what it's called is Operational Satellite Communication Stipend. And again, Bert, when you send that out, everybody will have this letter. So the question to you guys is, again, does this look like it may be something that we ought to continue to pursue? And just get an opinion as to what you guys think.
Is this the Musk's Starlink?
Yes. Well, it could be that, or
it
could be who's the other one? Harris.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that the grant.
L3.
Yeah, I think the grant is agnostic, but
It is.
for what, it's just. I'm actually working on that at work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Brian,
You might have an opinion.
Well, you have to start at your end result. What are you looking to solve?
Right.
And what would you keep up? Because you have disparate systems in the town, you can keep one of them up.
Yep.
Right. The library won't have. Will probably go down. Right. The public works will go down, but you'll keep core town hall up if that's what you choose. Or if you have an emergency, then you can keep a shelter up.
right.
So are you looking to provide the public with internet for connectivity in an emergency, or are you looking to provide services at the town hall? So I would ask that you just figure out what you want to do with it to determine whether or not it'd be a value that way.
Okay.
And the cost. I think
Well, yeah. I mean, the Starlink Mini is affordable. I would like, for my organization, we're looking at the performance, because it's going to be mounted on a vehicle, which is always moving. So, the wind loads and such like that, that's a between $2,200 and $3,000 dish.
Okay.
So, yeah, you have to figure out what you wanted to do. Are you going to have it in a briefcase, which you can bring, you can do that. And if you were using the high school,
Don't give him more ideas.
No, I'm sure a lot of organizations do that. And if you wanted to use it at the high school because you had a shelter there, I don't know. You can go there, you set it up, and they're online.
Yeah.
is
Or
it
you bring
open
it
carry?
here. Yeah.
It's an open carry. Yeah, there you
just have to
go.
set the WAN policies on your firewalls at each location ahead of time. Once that's done, you have a very flexible system that you can use in a variety of ways.
Right.
So,
And I think what my idea is basically to help, I think if we can centralize it, put it into the firehouse, because that's where the main trunk is for all except for public works, the
Parks and Rec.
library, and
Parks and Rec.
park and rec,
Right, yeah.
right? So those are the only ones that are not on that main trunk. So we could actually get the fire department, up and running, and as well as the rest of the town complex up and running if fiber went down for whatever reason. And I would only be looking at it as a backup. So I was on Starlink's thing this morning, taking a look to see, and they do have a backup solution. So it doesn't have to be, we're paying, boatloads of money for, high bandwidth and stuff. We're not looking for that. That's just kind of a temporary thing. And there's a way for us to set up so that that happens. So it's not a lot of money. And I don't know how that would apply against the $1,000 stipend.
And just- I'm sorry. to interrupt
Go ahead.
you.
No.
I said, bear in mind, if we had trees come down that necessitated this emergency, the same fiber that would disconnect all of these buildings is also your trunk from the fire department.
Yes.
So
So we may lose, but the
Yeah.
fire department, and again, I think that was, to me, it would make a lot of sense because that's where our emergency operations center is, that if the thing went down, you would at least want to have one
Yeah.
spot be absolutely up. And that's probably the spot that we
The
would
fire
want.
department, yeah,
Right.
emergency management,
Right.
you know.
get your core phones.
Well, between that and, well, obviously, I think if the things go down, the police are going to have their own,
Right.
right? So maybe, but that may be our other consideration is what can we do for PD? But if it's portable enough where, where it's not expensive enough, maybe there's,
It gives you that flexibility to make decisions.
right, exactly. Okay.
Yeah, so right now, do you have all of the core services hosted in the firehouse, the main trunk?
The main trunk comes in through the firehouse, I believe.
Right. And goes out. So yeah, so that's where, so we're connected to the firehouse
Right, you're
Via fiber.
via fiber.
Yeah, but you were talking before, I think Ryan had said that there are certain, like, we'll have the library up, or we'll have this up. I mean, so what,
So the library's on their own system. They do not, I have, to tell you the truth, I have no idea what the library's doing.
what
They're in
does the firehouse
CEN.
support?
The firehouse supports this building, or it's this complex, except for the library.
Except for the library, okay.
Yeah, how about the senior center?
Yes.
Yep.
They support the senior center too,
Yes.
via fiber?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So, but it comes through this complex right here? Or are you saying it comes from the firehouse?
I don't know if it's daisy chained or I'm not sure exactly how, but I know we are all on the same network. All right. So it's a Frontier fiber line that comes from the fire department and it is distributed throughout this complex. So this is kind of like the main, like I said, they're the main source. There's, I'm not sure how the hollow is connected either. I don't, because they're,
The CN is in there somewhere, PSDN.
yeah, so I think there's something on there, but so they're on Frontier as well, right?
Mhm.
But Spectrum serves Park and Rec,
Right. Yeah.
and Spectrum serves Public Works.
And the
But-
library, because they have a backup.
I think it would be important for the town, for somebody within the town to know just how it comes from the firehouse.
Yep.
To the various buildings, to the Hollow, to the Show building, to the Boyd building, to the senior center. And then it probably should be known how the library gets their information in.
So I
think-
know that, so they're on their own
on
separate
Spectrum?
CEN. So they have their own fiber line that comes in.
All right.
All right, and it's on CEN. They
But the town's
pay,
paying for it, right?
yes, it's in the library budget.
Okay, but so they pay for it. I mean, I understand they pay for it themselves and
Yes,
they pay for it through their budget.
yes. The town is paying for it, but it
I
is
understand.
completely through their budget.
Okay,
Nothing at all. Vancourt has nothing to do at all with what goes on in the library.
okay.
But they should be able to give you that infrastructure
They
map, if you will,
Yes,
of like, if it's a hub and spoke,
Yeah.
or whatever it is, whatever that
We should have,
that configuration.
somebody should have that map. Probably this
Sure.
technology committee should have that map, just like they should have the map from, the firehouse to the Show, the Boyd, the senior center as well.
yes,
Yeah, it's almost like you gotta look at these as almost like islands. Is
Yes.
this a
Yeah.
self-sufficient island? Because let's say if the bridge between the islands goes down, and you're like, okay, we'll remotely get to that island, and now it says, well, the data we need was back over that bridge.
right.
You got to make sure that all of these, like the library, like, okay, we may say, yeah, we can get to the library's apps, the server, whatever, But then they may say, yeah, but we can't do anything because the data we need is, we just got to make sure they're all
Right.
accessible and
Right.
self-sufficient.
Which I think leads into a whole other question, and it probably is, we're bordering on, the executive
Yeah.
session.
Yeah.
But that whole leads into, where is all of our data? All right. And
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
had this question of, we have a number of servers that are in the firehouse. What's on them? What are they actually being used for?
Mhm.
And
I did put a ticket into Vancord. I don't think I've seen the response back for that yet.
okay.
Well, I
Yeah,
have.
Because I know,
I don't think I have.
sorry, I know one of the,
information that you've got at a moment's, because
Right.
when you need it, you need it.
Yeah.
yeah,
right,
exactly.
right.
And especially,
Yeah.
very quickly you need it.
Mhm.
So I know one of the servers in there contains the Tyler ERP Pro. Not ERP Pro, the School Pro. All right. There's a standalone server that's up there that's got all of our data. Some of it's up in the cloud, some of it's over here, right? So not a lot of redundancy, but I mean, when you run parallels, you're actually going on our own server. And I don't know, like from an authentication standpoint, there's some stuff that's on a server up there, and that I don't understand, but it's because we're a standalone. There's a whole bunch of stuff. So I think I just have questions. What are those servers that are up there, and what is being supported? Because then, Tom, it goes back to you is, if we lose that connection over there from this complex to the firehouse, what actually went down?
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff is I know is in the cloud, like our time and attendance is in the cloud. So I mean, if we're trying to do time cards or whatever,
Mhm.
we don't have to worry about it, right? As long as we've got some type of connection, I can do it on my phone, right?
Right.
If I have a mobile connection, I can get in there, but I don't know what things we actually lose if we lose the connection at the firehouse.
Looking at your licensing, it looks like you have 9 servers doing something.
Yes.
Right. So
Yep.
That's
Doing something.
we just have to fill in those blanks.
Yes, exactly. So,
And I think that's what this committee is for.
right,
To
help
be
with us.
to help fill in those blanks.
right.
Yeah. And
And then assess we really need some of the stuff that we're doing. Is the architecture in here? The architecture, I think, is probably been being built over the last 15 years, 16
Mhm.
years. And obviously it may be time to go back in and take a look and say, what, we need to modernize. So,
modernize to the tune of knowing what you have.
well, there you go. Yeah. So knowing what we need to modernize,
Right.
right?
Right.
The last thing that I had on this list was the ERP system. So last week we had, all right, so take a step back. So our ERP system needs to be replaced. It's absolutely horrendous. So there's a number of companies that provide the service. We've pretty much settled on 2. I think we're kind of focused down to Tyler Technologies. The Munis is the system, and the other one is OpenGov. All right, and so we've kind of settled between those 2 companies. We had a 3-hour session with OpenGov last Wednesday. It will fill our needs. I really have no question about it filling our needs. The problem is that OpenGov, they're used throughout the state, but it's all the permitting process. It's the permitting system on there. They have not established in the state someone using their full ERP, which is, the accounts receivable, accounts payable portion of it. So general ledger, chart of accounts, all that other stuff that goes around that. They don't have anybody in the state that's using that. They have just deployed it in Altoona, Pennsylvania. They've got deployments in Texas. They've got thousands of these things around. There's just nobody in Connecticut. They're very hungry to get into Connecticut, and they will use us as as one of their show,
Launchpads, yeah.
right, or a showcase, right. So I think that we'll get a hell of a lot more support out of that. Tyler Technologies, they are basically have not been hungry at all. I mean, you know, these guys in OpenGov have been calling Nairi and I almost every week saying, hey, you know, how's it going? You know, what more do you need from us and stuff, right? We're trying to get Tyler to come in and give us a demo. They were saying like, I don't know. And then when this is like, because they already thought that we picked them, and finally they realized, oh crap, you know, they need something. So now they're trying to set up an all day session to come in here on July 20th with us to show us all of their stuff. So I just want to get you guys up to speed. This is, you know, we're kind of going through. This is probably our main showcase. So bottom line is I'm going to have 3 software deployments and migrations going on at the same time. So, you know, you talk about
That's it.
so, I mean, you know, Tom, we did this at IBM before, right? It's like, you know, 3, 8, you know, but it's going to be a challenge. This one, the ERP system is actually, it's going to take almost a year to do. So we're going to actually be targeting to come online probably fiscal year 27, 28. So we're looking at probably July 2027 to come up with that. So while I'm saying that we have 3 going on at the same time, we really don't. And the other 2 are not going to be intermeshed. This one is actually going to be a major effect on everything that we're doing in here from a fiscal standpoint and HR standpoint. That's basically what we're looking to do on that stuff. So, you know, again, what we could probably do is sit down with you guys and show you what some of the stuff is going on at ERP. But, you know, I'm not asking you guys to do anything on this right now. This was more for your information that we've kind of settled on these 2 companies.
And that will be an RFP.
No, actually, because they both of them are on state DAS contracts. All right. Well, no, I'm sorry. OpenGov is not on a DAS. Oh, yes, they are.
I think they are.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. So we can actually go through that with a no bid. But, you know, again, you know, I'm being fiscally prudent.
Yeah.
All right. And that if we think that we need to do it, then we will. But I don't think we do, because I think we've got, you know, if you take a look at our requirements that we wrote, and I'll be happy to show you guys what we wrote up for the whole process of going through. We're trying to be pretty thorough on this. One of my concerns on the ERP side is because this is such a large project, you know, Nairi's only got 2 other people on her team. It's going to be tough to try and project manage this thing through. And that's actually one of the things that OpenGov is really pushing on, is that they can help us with a lot of the project management stuff. They will provide the software that we need to project manage this. They will have a person to help us go through this thing. They'll have a point person to go through. So hopefully, I mean, there's going to be some lifting on our side, but probably not as much as if we were in IBM trying to do this.
Yeah.
Right.
So back when we were talking about the website migration, we were talking about Civic Plus. You mentioned OpenGov. Were they also a contender for the website?
No, they don't do. The only thing that they would do, Tom, is one of the things that they can do is data transparency. So they will actually have an ability for a resident to go in and query and take a look at our budget and see what we're spending our money on. All right, they've got charts and things. So that is the one thing that OpenGov will do with as part of Civic Plus, would be being able to display that information up there. So Tyler has something similar, but they charge for it. Whereas OpenGov, it's part of the entire package. And that's one of the things I like about, you know, OpenGov is, you know, pretty much what you're paying for is what you're getting, right? You know, and when we go to Tyler, you know, oh, you know, can we do this data transparency? Yeah, we'll give you a quote.
Everything's a module.
Yeah. And everything that should be connected is the module. Like, for example, we're using time and attendance. And if you want the scheduling, oh, that's a module. If you want people to be able to do something on their phones and geofencing, oh, that's an additional cost too. And everything is like an implementation fee and a subscription fee. Even if we went to Tyler Muni and we wanted our old data, which is in school, guess what? There's implementation to get us that data and a yearly subscription.
Oh yeah, data migration is a real
Yes.
bear because it's all manual.
Yes.
One of the things about if you do go with OpenGov is you're in a great position to exact a good deal of free information, free stuff,
Yes.
because you're going to be the golden child for that.
The showcase,
the
for
showcase,
Connecticut. Right.
And that helps them a lot.
Yeah.
It helps them a lot.
And they're still learning too. One of the things that they were sharing with us is specifically around their HR module. This is one of their newest modules, right? Being able to track payroll, and they're looking for help, right? Give us, tell us how you do it. Tell us what and then they'll go in and they'll actually make changes based on some of the things that you're looking for, and actually start to tailor the tool more towards your process rather than you having to change your process to fit the tool. So, and they seem to be very hungry and very open for doing things like that. Whereas we're not seeing the same thing off of Tyler. But Tyler's pretty well established. And Tyler, when I first saw Tyler, it's like, holy crap. I mean, this thing, it's like, it's got a slick interface. But, after going through what we're doing with school ERP and some of the questions that we're asking, you want to learn how to do that? Let me send you a quote so we can teach you how to do that. Versus OpenGov saying, you know what? I'm going to have a guy in your office tomorrow to help you out because their office is in Boston, and they'll just pop somebody down here for the day and work with you. All right. Versus, and no questions asked because they, again, and I think some of the things, like you said, Bert, they're willing to, throw a little extra for us just to.
That I've found that to be the case many times.
One consideration that I found when dealing in my town with a different piece of software is the integrations with the state. The state requires you to offload, I'm sure, in a variety of different ways, data to them, to their servers. Tyler, being established in the state, will have those integrations pre-made because they've used them however many times they've deployed it before.
Yep.
OpenGov, there may be some development time. There may be a lag. There may be a little rocky to start, but there may be incentive there.
Yeah.
To get in to be the one.
Right.
And concessions.
Sure.
And concession. I mean,
Sure.
if they screw up, if they're a good company, I don't know who they are. If they're a good company, if they screw up, they're gonna mea culpa and make it right.
Yeah. And they, and that's some of the things that when we met with them, we had a little session after and we talked about that. And we felt that while they're new to Connecticut from, the financial side of things, they've been here for permitting for a long time. And they've actually got a lot of deployments around on permitting because that was what their bread and butter was. And they're trying to branch out to being a more encompassing company. So they've been around for a while. It doesn't look like it's a fly-by-night operation, and that's some of the things that we're concerned about is like, okay, are we going to get ongoing support? Because to me, for this town, this is basically one of our foundations. We need to pick the right company to come in here because it's going to be here for the next 10 to 20 years, right? And so I want to make sure that we're not, again, spinning our wheels or getting something that's going to be obsolete in 3 or 4 years, and we're going to have to go through this again.
And I feel like they're still innovating where Tyler is sort of settling. Like their innovation is integrating with a third party. And when they showed us their budget book, it kind of looked cool. But it was a third party outfit. And really you could go in and you could change like query data, which is a little scary to me.
Yeah, instead of just extracting directly out of the database and that's it. No, you basically, you put it in the book and then you can do whatever you want with it. So
yeah, one of the key parts of an ERP is you want it to be auditable, right? You want to know exactly what happened, when, by who.
Yep.
Yeah, you want that data integrity for sure.
Yep.
So a couple of questions I had, as far as like when you're talking to some of these companies, especially when you're doing migrations and all that, is there talk about the infrastructure? Like, you're not going to just go and update your existing infrastructure, right?
No.
You have to have bubble hardware. You have to have something that's on the side that you're going to work on. Is that something that you're going to have to provision, or would they provision that for you to do that?
So this will be completely in the cloud.
Okay. So
So
they could just spin up another.
they'll
tenant.
they'll spin up another tenant. They will, be able to put this thing into a non-production environment,
Yeah.
go through the whole thing, and we'll make sure, obviously they'll be shaking that whole thing down. So
And the thing that's nice about it is, like, when you think of, like, okay, you put it up in the cloud, you do the software, you get all the data, you do some testing and say, this looks good. Now there has to be some consensus on deployment. When are we going to deploy that and make that production?
right. And that's, and when we discuss that, the ideal thing would be is that when you're cutting over to a new fiscal year,
Yep.
right? Because you really don't want to be in the middle of a fiscal year and then you're deploying this thing, right? And you're actually running it on two different systems. So that was what the thought was, is actually do it when you're completely cutting over to a new fiscal year, and we'll go through.
Yeah.
All right. Which leads me actually to, there is an ask for you guys, because as we started chatting, because you triggered something, they're only going to be bringing over about 2 years worth of data. All right. So about that. And so we have data back at least at 2013.
Mhm.
All right. We really want to get that out of Tyler. We can't be paying for 2 licenses going through the thing. So the question is my thought was that we probably ought to have some database and just be able to pull that data out, put it in a database, make the thing queryable, and almost you can query it, like using like a Power BI type interface on it. You don't really need to have, the full blown thing, because all you're going to be doing is looking for historical data. So that leads to a couple of questions, right? Obviously, what's the architecture looking like? I know we can do an extract, right? And we can get it into a flat file. I've had that done when I first was on the Board of Finance, and we were pulling old data. They were all coming out in flat files, and I was able to just put them into a CSV, and then I just actually used the spreadsheet to run Power BI. So I just don't know exactly all the data that Naire's team is going to want to get out of that, but that's one of my thoughts. And I don't know what would be a good database to use. I don't know. You got MongoDB, or you got, whatever. So
In my experience with an ERP, whatever, I'm not sure what you're using now, but whatever it is, I'm relatively certain that if you don't pay the licensing, the lights don't go out.
Yeah.
Right, because it's a local database. You can spin that up in parallel and have it going in parallel and pull data from it for the next 5 years. You're just not paying for support anymore.
Okay.
And updates. So you can maintain that live database and have 2 ERP systems running at the same time, and only use that for historical queries.
right,
It's not public facing at all.
right.
And otherwise, what you're going to have to do is migrate that to a flat database, and you're going to pay a good amount of money for any sort of data migration and mapping, I would
Yeah.
imagine. Just a consideration.
Yep.
Wrap it up after 2 hours?
Yeah, sure.
Are we?
Yeah, we're good. So I mean,
Sounds
that was my four things, and for the first presentation, Nairi and I'll start chatting a little bit more about that.
And I will get this out to all of you, and if there's anything else you want to get to me
Yeah.
to get to them, I will.
If we can get a copy of Rick's presentation.
Okay, I don't know what he gave you.
So I think it was like there was the general overview
Okay.
of what the application is
Sure.
and stuff. It was just
I'll ask him.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll get him, and I'll send that out too.
okay.
So I'll ask him to do that, and
Perfect.
but I will get that out by tomorrow this time, so you'll have it tomorrow.
Perfect.
All right. Adjourned at 6:30.
All right.
Good job, guys.